Yeah, I told her she doesn't want to keep her ex-husband. I told her when she go to Gallegos, go back to Gallegos. That's her maiden name. She's like, no.
But anyway, we've made progress on the one half.
There will be.
But we have that little
She
set.
told Barbara, you know you're not going to be the only Barbara. She goes, yeah, I know already. He's going to introduce, we don't need a roll call.
Yeah, George should ask it.
Okay, okay.
Kat, is there a committee sign-in sheet? Is it in the wrong place?
Okay, we're just after 5 o'clock, so I'll go ahead and call this meeting of the Mesilla Valley MPO Bicycle and Pedestrian Facilities Advisory Committee to order. We have a couple of new members, so I'll just go and ask everybody down the line to introduce themselves and say where they represent.
Vanessa Morales Romero, the City of Las Cruces.
Erica Christensen, citizen representative from Doñana County.
Ashley Curry, citizen representative from the town of Mesilla.
Andrew Bencomo, pedestrian representative.
Jess Waller, Las Cruces Bicycle, BPAC representative.
Albert Casillas, Doñana County.
Andreas Lanen, proxy for Mr. Harold Love and MDOT.
Did that pick up properly for the, on the mic?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize it was off. Ryan Nunez from the town of Mesilla.
And I'm the chair, George Pearson, City of Las Cruces representative. So we have a quorum.
Yes, we do.
We'll go to approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda? I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Albert Casillas, I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Andrew Bencomo, second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? And that we have the agenda approved. Next, we have approval of the minutes of our April 18th meeting. Do we have any comments on the agenda, on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll hear a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Albert Casillas, I move to approve the minutes of April 18th.
Andrew Bencomo, second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the April 18th minutes. All in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes are approved. Public comment. Do we have anybody from the public that wishes to comment at this point? Seeing none, we move on to action items. Public participation plan update.
And this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Dominic Loyo to discuss this.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the BPAC. Dominic Loya for MPO staff. So, as most of you know, because you've been here before, that the public participation plan comes before the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. For those of you who don't, the public participation plan is a plan that helps us basically do all our public participation for all of our work products. So we are looking at just a couple of small changes in it. It is in your packet on page 33, for those of you that have the packets. So it's, as I said, it's a guide for all of the public participation activities. We pretty much left it intact. Mostly there were a couple of removals, and that was just because of the upcoming changes. And the relationship between the MPO and the City of Las Cruces. We did add in one section, which was to add in a section for virtual public engagement. because of the issues we had during the pandemic, as you all know, that we're here. It became really interesting trying to get input for the Metropolitan Transportation Plan when it says we have to have 3 rounds of public engagement and we're not allowed to meet the public. So we did put something in for that. It was basically, we'll look into using whatever is best at the time rather than a specific thing. This last time we used YouTube as a way to get public comment, but we did leave it vague so that we can use whatever happens to be the most appropriate medium at the time. So as I said, they're just minor changes. We are requesting a recommendation of approval to the policy board. I will stand for any comments or questions.
Any comments from committee members? I guess I'll just comment that having the virtual participation is a good thing. Some of the recent public participation have been kind of hybrid ones, and that's, having been on both sides of those, they seem to work really well. So it's good to see that that's part of the public participation plan. I'll hear a motion to recommend approval of the public participation plan to the policy board.
Ashley Curry, so moved.
Albert Casillas, second.
I have a motion and a second to recommend approval of the public participation plan to the policy board. All in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed? We're on to our discussion items. 6.1, bicycle safety issues in the town of Mesilla.
That'll be presented by Mr. Ryan Nunez.
Okay, thank you. I'm Deputy Nunez with the Mesilla Marshals. Some of the problems that we're having with bicycles on the streets, since we're more of a tourist town, we're more in the countryside, we do get a lot of the bike groups, which consist anywhere from 5 members up to more than 20 members at a time. The problem that we have with those bit large groups is they don't always, according to our town ordinances, ride as close to the right side of the road as possible. They ride 2, 3, 4 people at a time. And according to our ordinance, 12-8-5, section B, persons riding bicycles upon streets shall not ride more than 2 abreast, except on paths or parts of the street set aside for exclusive use of the bicycles. The other thing that we're still gonna watch and see how it goes is the new bike path that's on Calle Norte itself. With the larger groups, they're still wanting to ride on Calle Norte instead of using the bike path, just because there's such large groups of them. When we have residential people that ride bikes in that area, they do use the bike path. It's just more of the larger bike groups themselves. So we haven't had too many problems with this so much. We've kind of taken care of it. Is people that ride their bikes, they're more walking now, but going to the convenience store, buying stuff, and trying to carry it on their bikes. We've kind of informed them that they can't be doing that. They have to have control of their bicycle. The thing that I noticed when I worked graveyards, more on University, it's a longer stretch, from South Main all the way up to Avenida de Mesilla, is lights and equipments on their bikes. Some bikes, they do have the front light, but they don't have the back light. And it does get very dark in there. We don't have street lights for that area, and you tend not to notice them until you're right on top of them. Anytime that we do come across such situation, we inform them of our town ordinances. And for that time being, we ask if there's a way someone can pick them up until they can get their bike fixed and ride it safely at night. As you can see in our town ordinances, it does need to be equipped with a front light, a back light, and it needs to be equipped with some sort of bell or device capable of giving signal audible for distance of at least 100 feet. That we have yet to see on anyone's bicycles. As you can see in there, the only thing that they're not allowed to have is a siren or a whistle. This is the main one that we're having trouble with, especially with our bike groups. Obedience to traffic control devices, they tend to meet on our on the plaza where the gazebo is. It's kind of their meeting point. But I've watched them several times. There's stop signs in the area, and they just run through the stop signs. And I know working with the city before and with the state laws, traffic, bicycles are, if they are on the roadways, are obligated to follow such laws, such as if come to a stop sign, you're supposed to still come to a complete stop. A lot of them do not use their, I don't want to say turn signals, but their arms, hands as their designation of direction of travel. I've personally have tried to go out and talk with them, try and pass on the information as much as possible. The only thing that I can think of that would solve this problem to kind of get them to start recognizing it is if we were to start citing all the bicyclists, which we don't want to do. We like having them in the town. We like them, you know, around, enjoying the historic town that we have. At the same time, this is a major problem that we do have. And like I said, some of these groups range from 5 to over 20 people at a time. And I think there's 2 or 3 groups, bike groups, that that I've seen in town. And a lot of them are, you can tell which groups they're from because they all wear certain biking shirts with their names on them, their bike club names, stuff like that. The other thing that we have, just more around the plaza, is these are more for the adolescents, and I understand that they feel safe riding on the sidewalks, but for our policies, that's a business area. And for our policies, our town ordinances, that you can't ride on the sidewalk if it's in a business district. Unfortunately, the center of town of Mesilla is pretty much all business. And I know it's a little hard right now. We don't have a lot of bike lanes, and I know the town's trying to improve that, especially Calle Norte was a big improvement, getting safety for those people. Any questions so far?
Yeah, this is Jess Waller, Las Cruces Bicycle Representative. I have a few comments. If you could go back, I think it was 2 slides, talking about the whistle or siren.
Let's see, oops, that one.
Want to make sure I understood that. So, except that a bicycle shall not be equipped with, nor shall any person use upon a bicycle any siren or whistle. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure I understood that you weren't requiring bicycles to have a siren or whistle or bell. Good luck with that.
Yeah, we that's why we try and inform them. For me, I work a lot with the youth in the town of Mesilla, and so I start with them. So as they get older, you know, it's more ingrained in their mind that these are the ordinances, these are the rules of the road. As we get to people a little bit older, Yeah, it's a,
You're not going to
They're
have
set in their ways.
compliance. I can already tell you now. It's the first sentence that I have issue with. I think most bicyclists, adult bicyclists or recreational bicycles, they're not going to follow that. They're
yeah.
not going to they're not going to put a belt on their bicycle. It's just
Yeah.
not going to happen.
Yeah, and when I rode bikes, it wasn't, and when I was a kid is when I had that. But according, these are our town ordinances, and these are what's enforceable in the town of Mesilla.
So that wording sounds like it mirrors state law. It's what I remember from state law. When we went through the City of Las Cruces ordinances, we took that requirement out and instead said that you must be able to create an audible warning implying that you could yell at somebody.
Yep, bicyclists call out.
Yeah,
So that's, I think our opinion when we were working on that is that that was a ill-formed state law. If the state really meant it, they would require bicycles to be sold with a bell on them.
yeah,
But they don't, so bells are not sold on bicycles, so bells do not get added to bicycles unless you're in safe route to school. And so that's what's going on there.
Yeah,
This
and-
is Jeff Slaughter again. I want to go on the record as not agreeing to the first sentence of Part B. I think that's excessive.
Well, it's state law, so,
But they're not, it's not a requirement. It's unenforced. It is law, it's not enforced. There's no bicycle club that I know of that has cyclists that have a bell or other device capable of giving an audible signal.
so you're always in violation of state law. I mean, that's just the way it is, because that is state law. Mesilla also reflects that. Las Cruces tried to mitigate that. And I don't know, we didn't really get a strong opinion from attorney on that, if we can loosen laws. In general, municipalities can increase restriction, be more restrictive rather than less restrictive. So
yeah.
Las Cruces law may not even be appropriate.
And I mean, that's something too that we can look with our attorneys and see how it can be altered.
Well, the state laws in general need to be modernized for bicyclists. So that's really the place where that should be taken,
Yeah.
rather than at the city level or municipal level.
Mr. Chair,
Andrew?
Andrew Bencomo for the record. So a question. So this presentation is titled Bicycling Issues in Town of Mesilla. I don't know if I got it exactly correct, but anyway. So is the presentation just to inform us of that, or are you taking any feedback on?
No, well,
Could be.
I'm taking feedback too on the question. That's why I asked if you
Okay.
guys had any questions on it. Because there are some town ordinances not related to bicycles that we are trying to go back because they are a little outdated.
Okay.
And we are trying to correct them.
Okay, so I'm going to have you go back to the first slide.
Can I?
Item C, that is more restrictive than state law. And in fact, the governor vetoed this requirement from the last time when we had an issue come up. The 5-foot passing rule had, they had what we call the poison pill amendment because it added the requirement to use a side path if one was present. So nobody in Mesilla, nobody that comes to Mesilla is going to know about this because this is not state law.
Yeah, correct.
So if you want to be able to enforce this, you're going to have to put up some signage that explains, and basically you're going to have to kick bicyclists off of Calle del Norte.
Yeah, and that's why we're trying to figure out, because these aren't all the ordinances that I put in here. These are the ones, just the major ones that we are having problems with. Some of them we use officer discretion on those, on a lot of these. Instead of citing them, we're trying to inform them, which to me is to inform people is better than automatically giving them, some sort of
Right,
penalty.
typically, you do the education, then you do the enforcement. Well, there's been no education on this. Even in Las Cruces, it's been many years now that we've had the requirement for bicyclists to dismount and cross as pedestrians at crosswalks. Well, there's no signage or no knowledge of that, so
Yeah.
nobody does it. It's the same issue here with this. Nobody's going to get off. Right now, I was not aware of this. It would have been my choice. Do I want to ride on Calle del Norte or do I want to ride on the side path? I would I would argue with you, and then you'd have to pull out the book and tell me it was different.
Yeah. And I mean, years ago, I've had that situation where people have questioned our town ordinances, and I've had to show them what the ordinance is for the reason that I was out there talking to them about. And that's what I said, we're trying to go through our ordinances, not just for bicycles, but for a lot of it, and see what needs to be updated and altered for the times now.
Right, I guess just as a more general thing too, if you're looking at all the ordinances, look at reducing the speed limit in the town to 20 miles an hour, because your roads inside the town limits are more appropriate for 20 miles an hour than anything else. State law says 30 miles an hour, unless posted, so that.
Yeah, and a lot of our roads are, especially within the centralized area of the town of Mesilla, are 20 miles an hour. The only roads that aren't is Avenue Mesilla, Union, and Calle del Norte is 30. It's not 20, it's 30 on that one. The rest are 35. Within, even Bouts is 25 until the city limits.
Right, but that's because they're posted, so I would just recommend looking at changing the default speed limit, because I know some of the roads that I ride are the little, they're 15-foot wide or something, 18-foot wide, not appropriate. Two cars can't go past each other without being careful. So that's just my comment on speed limits in the town of Mesilla.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I had
Andrew.
a couple more comments, sorry. So as far as carry, it says on the thing, it said that you have to be able to ride with at least one hand on your handlebars when you're riding.
Yes, sir.
So, but then you mentioned about trying to discourage people from carrying bags, but they can carry it with one hand and keep a hand on the handlebar. I just would caution being careful with that, because there's some people that's their only form of transportation. That's
Yes,
how they
sir.
get to the store and get their food or whatever, and then they bike back to where they're going from. Just as long as there's some thought put into that, as far as a little bit of equity with that. And then as far as the turn signals, I think the whole thing, George made a very good point. There's an education piece to this. People are so used to riding there, and I know the town of Mesilla wants cyclists to come there. I mean, people come from Juarez and El Paso, they ride up on the weekends, dine there, and then ride back. So it's a really good economic development thing for them. So as far as, I know it's a presentation on bikes, but as long as there's an education piece for not only bicyclists, but also motorists also. Because turn signals, using your hand signals, you're correct. We should be doing that. But how many cars don't use their turn signals either? That's not an excuse for cyclists. I'm just saying an education piece is real important for all of these things, because some of this I was not aware of. And I have to agree with George on the Calle Norte thing. Having to ride on the path, you're not allowed to ride on the street, but you can ride only on the path. And then the other one was strange, because it said, if it says you have to ride on the street only, not on the sidewalk, and then the next one says, unless says you can't ride on the street, then you have to ride on the sidewalk. It's very confusing. So, but yeah, the education piece, and maybe kind of sitting down with experts like Ashley, who lives in Mesilla, George, who is, I think, the biggest expert up here on bicycling, and just talking through those points, if you're going to look at your ordinances and what really makes sense, what is enforceable sometimes, because sometimes we do stuff and I feel for you guys because it's almost unenforceable. So
Yeah.
trying to work on that. But thank you for.
Mr. Chair and Andrew, I concur with everything that's been mentioned. There's a lot to unpack here. There's the U-turn, getting off your bicycle. There's the audible signal. There's the use of the bike path instead of the road when there's a bike path. May I ask, is the Calle del Norte multi-use trail, is that all within the town of Mesilla boundaries?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, you're going to have some signage there if you want that to happen. Road cyclists are going to be quite adamant. They're going to be in the road. That's why I call them road bikes. They're not going to want to take the multi-use trail. And they probably go at a fairly good pace, rate of speed, and creates a certain incompatibility with pedestrians and road cyclists on the multi-use trail. They're going to want to be in the road. So I just wanted to bring those points to attention and maybe invite you to consider to consult. You're also going to have an enforceability issue with the groups coming up from El Paso. And that's the other MPO south of here. And I think that the cyclists may be their own worst enemy. Oftentimes, they're aware that it's only 2 abreast, but I have heard multiple occasions where they're blocking 28.
Yeah.
And they're creating a sort of animosity or antagonism with the local community and perhaps inviting the wrath in the form of ordinances such as this, which are, I view them as very restrictive. I don't think it makes, I read these, it doesn't sound like Mesilla is a very bicycle-friendly place.
Yes,
That's how I read it.
Ashley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Deputy Nunez, I would like to just first off offer, I'm the BPAC representative for the town of Mesilla, so be happy to meet with you and just go over these, little by little. And as Andrew said, maybe we could bring in George or somebody so that we can, just look at them, compare them to state law and see what actually makes sense and have a discussion. I appreciate you bringing it to BPAC. I think it's really important, but we'd also be happy just to, hash out the details, or I would be, speaking on behalf of George, I shouldn't. I think, I agree with some of those things. I think the bike path issue, when the bike path got built, it's a little bit on the north, a little bit on the south, a little bit on the north. And if we're going back to what the city of Las Cruces has of needing to dismount to use the crosswalk, you're going to have cyclists going at 25 miles an hour, stopping all their bikes. You've got a group of 30 and then they stop and they walk their bikes across the street and then go for, it gets awkward. So I think that there's some things like that don't lean towards safety. So I think that there should be some of that. And again, like Mr. Wallace said, having dogs and kids and things like that. And then you've got a pack of cyclists going along the way there that could, be a safety issue. I think the other thing, the thing that I always teach kids when we're teaching bike safety is obviously you're biking on the right-hand side of the road. There are times on the multi-use trail, so whether you're on Union or whether you're on Calle del Norte, that you'd be going against traffic. And that can be a real safety hazard as somebody's coming out of a driveway or an intersection. If they're turning left, they're really only looking to the right just to make sure it's clear, and that could, create conflict with vehicles. So I really would very strongly suggest we take that one out, because then you're putting people in potentially dangerous situations for themselves. And then also just tomorrow night's the Rite of Silence in the town of Mesilla. I'm wondering if maybe you could come. That would be a really great opportunity.
I'll be there.
Okay, so that would be a great opportunity. I mean, you'll have 50 to 100 cyclists. That'd be a great opportunity just to do some education and, a couple little quick words on these types of things. And then, maybe there'd even be people therein that you could invite to review ordinances. And so then that way, if they come back and say, hey, you didn't ask us, you're like, well, actually did. So I mean, I don't know, maybe some public input even on reviewing these ordinances. I mean, if you get anybody, great, but at least you offered for people to be able to review. And then there was one more thing and I forgot what I was going to say. So I'll be done. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, actually, one other further point I'd like to address is the one hand on the bicycle. Road cyclists is standard operating procedure to put your hand close to the stem while taking a drink of water with one hand on the handlebar. That is standard operating bicycle procedure for an experienced cyclist. So just be aware of that.
Yes, sir.
Just one comment. So just for my own clarification, right now you're just giving us a breakdown of existing ordinances that are within the town of Mesilla, right? I'm sure, I mean, you still have to go through the rest of your PowerPoint and, give us a list of everything else that's there. And I look forward to, looking at those slides as well. But right now, you're just giving us a breakdown. And I'm sure at a later date, there's probably going to be some type of a public meeting to get additional feedback from members of the public, bicyclists, and that kind of stuff. And then you still have to go to your board to either make some changes and to existing ordinances. So I think at this point, all the comments that we're stating, I mean, he's getting a pretty good picture of where we're coming from. But all that will probably have to be hashed out at, other public meetings and settings,
Yes.
which is where I think that's where you're heading, right? I mean,
Yes,
right now,
sir.
you're just giving us a breakdown, and eventually, later on, there's going to be additional public hearings with the public.
Yes, sir. Yeah, because before we can change anything to our ordinance book, I believe it has to go to a vote with our Board of Trustees too.
Do you have any ideas of additional meetings for the public, or where the public might be invited?
I have to see when all our Board of Trustees meetings are open to the public. The public is allowed to come in, make comments. There is, I'm not sure, I think there on the website is the agenda for what's going to be discussed, to give the public a little bit of a heads up to see if there's anything they're going to want to discuss. There's also one posted at the Mesilla Public Safety Building, which is on Parian and Calle Oeste. You can also find them at Town Hall.
And then just one more thing, under your existing comprehensive plan, I'm looking at page 96, you already have some items in there that identifies, best routes for bicyclists. There's a map in here as well that talks about bicycle facilities and suitability. So there's already been some studies done by our MPO on that. So you might want to take a look at that too. Maybe get some ideas out of those documents as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
You have more presentation?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, I guess my other comment is, as you're looking at bicycle things, you might consider looking at becoming a League of American Bicyclists, bicycle-friendly community. That's just, and I think this board would be willing to help you with that. You might look at additional thing, parking for bicycles. That's an issue for, especially when people want to come and visit your shops there. Where do you park now? You've got, even when I go to visit to the town of Mesilla, you don't have bike parking up next to the town hall. You've got bike parking out next to the street. Well, I'm not going to park my bike out by the street. So there are things like that. So doing more than just looking at the laws might be a good thing to help promote bicycles. Like Albert was saying, you've got some things in your comprehensive plan, so maybe expand on that also.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, and we'll try to get the word out. And anything you need from this board, we'd be certainly willing to help.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Next discussion item is boundary smoothing process presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dominic Loya for MPO staff. I will be presenting this as well. So every 10 years, the census is done, and the boundaries, of course, of urban areas change. So that's what we're going to be looking at. As I said, it happens after every census. The data is finally in from the 2020 census, and the urban areas are being adjusted slightly. Urban areas are considered anything over 5,000 in population or more, and 2,000 housing units. Basically, it's done by dwellings per square, units per square mile now. So this slide here is something that the mid-region MPO put together as to a kind of an FAQ for boundary smoothing. So basically, and then it's a who does what, and basically who has what responsibilities. So most of it, basically, our responsibilities are going to be to smooth the boundaries of the urban area of the Mesilla Valley MPO. And we will coordinate that, of course, with NMDOT. And it has to include all adjustments that were made in 2020. And I will give you a minute to read this real quick. So as everybody can see, it will be due in September of this year. For this is why it's a discussion item now. We will be bringing it back at the July meeting to seek action on it. So there are a couple of things that go into how the boundaries are decided. The first is dwelling units per square mile. The second is impervious surface. As you can see here, this is impervious surface for the entire area. This is the city of Las Cruces. Out here, we can see White Sands Missile Range. We can see, of course, down here is El Paso, and then the surrounding towns around it. So the reason for impervious surface is so that commercial areas can be counted within the urban area. And then out here, we also have the airport and the industrial park. So when all this is put together, basically anything that you see within the lines here are considered urban areas within the Mesilla Valley MPO. So what we'll do, and this is just basically the basic one, is we're going to put a border around this. Next time we'll bring forward some options for the committee to look at and then make a recommendation on. As you can see, there are certain areas that are not included right now. That includes the airport and the industrial park. If you just take the central area and put a ring around it, it'll be leaving out areas out on the East Mesa that are becoming more urbanized. And same thing out here on the West Mesa as well. As you can see, Picacho Hills is not included in this area, even though it's right next door to another, what is considered an urban area. So these will just be some of the things that we'll be looking at when we bring out the maps for recommendation next time. As I said, it'll be an action item in the next BPAC. The alternatives will be presented there. And then we will be looking for a recommendation of a specific alternative to the policy board. I also have here in the audience Mr. Andy Hume for the airport. I believe he wants to say a few words, and Ms. Celicia Villegas for the city of Las Cruces, who represents the industrial park.
Good evening, board members, or committee members. My name is My name is Andy Hume, and I'm airport director at Las Cruces International Airport. There will never be dwelling units on the airport, but as we look to grow our service at the airport, we're going to be serving all of the dwelling units in our area. And so, when you look at, I don't know if we can go back to the. If we go back to the this item here, I think there's a couple of key items there in the center column under why do we have it, to make better planning decisions. It's not just about what we have in place. It's not just about the existing urban areas, but about planning as those urban areas grow. For those of you who know me, I spent 11 years in the MPO, so I have some good knowledge of how that works, and I appreciate the hard work that my MPO folks here are doing. And then also in the next row there, how it's determined, considering previous smooth boundary, existing development, known geographic features in the road network. And so when you're looking at geographic features like the Innovation Industrial Park and the airport, these are key geographic features in our area and also tie into the overall network, even though not specifically roadway in our case at the airport, but certainly tie in with the overall the overall transportation network. So thank you all very much. And if you all have any questions, please, I'll be here to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
So you haven't presented any updates yet. Are you anticipating to include the airport and the industrial park in the urban area?
Mr. Chair, that will be one of the alternatives.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Celicia Villegas. I'm Economic Development Coordinator, specifically for the Las Cruces Industrial Park. So, yeah, I'm actually, this is the first look at this, and I guess my question might be, what impacts would it be, whether leaving it out or including it, as far as any kind of planning, financial, is it going to be impacting any kind of funding in the future, and that sort of thing. So I am on Andy's master plan committee for the airport, and we've been working together to bring more economic development in that area. So any questions that I might answer, I'm here, so thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Andrew Ray for MPO staff. To answer Ms. Villegas' question, yes, it's exactly a question of funding. Whether or not the airport and the industrial park are included within the urbanized area determines which categories of federal funding that those geographic areas will be eligible for. If they're not included in the urban areas, then they will only be eligible for rural funds, which from a certain point of view might be considered advantageous because there's less competition for those funds. However, those funds are also a lot less abundant in their inherent nature. There's a lot more urban funds than there are rural funds. And given the big ticket nature of a lot of the items that the city, especially if it's successful in its ambitions, which I think we all hear that's part of our mission, is to make the city, help make the city successful, it's going to be more expensive than they're going to be able to sustain through rural funds. So that's the reason why we're having this conversation tonight to determine the level of importance that's assigned to those particular geographic attractors being in the urban versus the rural area.
Okay. So this isn't going to change the MPO boundaries at all. It just changes what's called the urbanized area within the MPO. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And the census tracts, does that change? That's done by Census Bureau, I guess.
That is correct. Those are federally done, and they change them when they choose to change them.
Do you build off the census tracts, or do you build off your own data or other data?
The tracks, actually, I'll let Dr. Michael McAdams speak on this because he's the one that did the most of the work on it.
The census tract won't change. Once they're established by the Census Bureau, they're set in. There could be some alteration, but I'd rare it down. The blocks are also, when this census tract, the blocks come with them. The blocks initially had no data, and the data they have right now is only dwelling units and population. When they decide to do the new urban area boundaries, there is no urbanized areas anymore. They used to be designated by the census, but that went away with the 2020 census. And so what they do to base it on dwelling units per square mile and or acre too. So when they look at different perspectives, they combine both the dwelling units, which is, I believe it's 425. It was 385 per square mile, but they upped it. And so it eliminated some of the urban areas, but the term urbanized areas may come back. I know it's like crossing hairs, but right now it's urban area, period. So it's basically our area. You can see it's mostly the 385 or the 425 per square mile combined with the impervious areas to basically cover things like industrial areas, commercial areas. Those areas that are basically urban, but they don't have population. So there's some peculiarities, and that is one is that why Picacho Hill is included, because that's the way they defined it, and also why is the airport included? The airports were included, let me say, not because of impervious areas, unless they touch the criteria for airports being included in the urban areas were based on emplacements. But obviously, how can you say the airport is not urbanized? So that's one thing we consider. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Andrew Reagan for MPO staff. Just also to add on to that, yes, the census is the basis for all of this, but the whole reason why the boundary smoothing process exists in the federal regs is to sort of allow a human element, not just the hard, cold look at the numbers, because the numbers don't tell the whole story. We all know that there's more going on in the area than the numbers necessarily reflect. That's why the boundary smoothing process exists, is to allow for a planning process to come in and say, X, Y, or Z also needs to be included because of A, B, and C factors. So it's a building onto the base that the numbers lay, but it's specifically there because the numbers don't tell the entire story.
Okay. So when you bring this back, are you going to bring 3 different options, or?
Yes, I think it is 3 options that we're going to bring for.
We're going to be pretty much restricted to that, or would we have?
No, it's the 3 options. I will say, unlike when we did the TPF, staff is going to present a recommended alternative from the point of view of staff, but the 3 alternatives, they are definitely going to be, they're going to be very discrete alternatives from each other, but there's the board or the committee has the ability to cobble together its own version of the recommendation on the basis that the committee is not tied to those 3. It's just those are the 3 sort of very obvious and discrete options that can build a conversation from.
Okay, so is the TAC going to see this next, or are we going to see it first?
Every one of the advisory committees and the board is going to see this as a discussion item. It's starting here tonight. TAC will see this on June 1st, and then the policy board will see it as a discussion item June 10th, I believe, is the June policy board meeting. And then BPAC will see it for action at their July meeting because the BPAC is on vacation in the month of June. And then because the TAC and the policy board are on vacation in the month of July, they will then see it for adoption in August. That's the reason why we had to time this the way that we did, because as you saw in the presentation, it's due in September. So.
Okay. Anybody else have comments, questions?
Just one quick question. So we can expand the urban area boundary, but can we also, are you guys also planning on taking it away from other existing areas right now? Is that an option, or?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Casillas, that's one of the options that's going to be under consideration. So in a way, that's going to be something that'll be up for discussion among the members of the BPAC as to how you guys want to advise the policy board. But that option will be on the table for discussion as to the alignment.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, Andreas Linden, NMDOT. We heard about a benefit would be additional funding sources for an urbanized area. Is there any negative about this approach?
Well, the negative would be the comparatively fewer dollars that are available in the rural categories could potentially be the negative. I mean, from just an sort of a realm of ideals perspective, it's not that important. It's a question of the actual what's the dollar amounts that are going to be available between the 2 funding categories, and there's a lot more urban funding available than there is rural.
So there's more funding for urban, but less competition for rural? Is that
That's exactly right, Mr. Chair. That's exactly right.
Andreas, and then one follow-up question. And then by expanding the urban area, the competition within the urban area, since this is multiple entities, would increase?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Delana, yes, that is correct. Because all of our member entities, especially when it comes to statewide funding pots, they are in competition with each other, as we saw last month here at this committee with the TPF. So that is true.
Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you for that. We'll look forward to future discussion. We're on to committee and staff comments. City of Las Cruces, do you have any comments?
I have some updates.
Now's your time.
So for Walnut Madrid, Walnut is mostly completely done. It's been paved and striped. If not completely, 90%. They have a few signs they need to put in, and just a few tie-ins remain. Madrid is still ongoing. They're working on utilities there, and the estimated completion for that will be late summer or early fall. University Avenue is at 30% completed right now. The east side has been paved and striped and just waiting on some signing for that. The water line's ongoing on the west end, and that one's estimated completion for the late fall. And beginning this month, the North Rise and Sonoma Ranch traffic signal began. Right now, they're just working on median construction at White Sage Arc. Probably won't see a signal going up until winter, just because all the steel poles are on back order. And that's it.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, put you on the spot. The city's doing a traffic calming project on Melendres between roughly Amador and Maine. Do you have any information on that and what's going on there?
If you're referring to the CIP project,
No, it's a temporary traffic calming project. They put up some little temporary bollards and narrowed the street some, so you don't know about that one.
okay, no, I'm not familiar with that, but I can ask. It's
Okay.
probably our traffic section that knows.
Yeah,
more
they're,
information about that.
the press release said it's going to only be for this week, so maybe you can tell us about how successful that was at our next meeting.
Okay, I'll find out. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I had one comment or a question about University Avenue. I'm sorry, Jess Swaller, Las Cruces representative. I had one question about University, and I don't think there's anything you can do other than as it currently exists. But as you get up towards the Pan Am Center and the new bridge, you have great bicycle facilities. You got buffer lane, you got buffers, you got bike lanes. It's wonderful. It's bicycle heaven. However, when you get down towards University, down towards Chick-fil-A and Espina, there is no bike lane. There's no bike lane being put in, is there? Because of the right-of-way issues, is that correct?
Right, I believe so. So this project started as just a water line replacement, but while
Yes.
we were in there, we were fixing the pavement as well. I know there was some multi-use paths that used to be along there, and then when the university started building buildings, they kind of removed some of those. There is, for CIP, I believe in the next fiscal year, they do have some money in there to do some design or some studies on it, and they're hoping to completely reconstruct it.
Yeah,
So-
you would have to expand the right-of-way to get a bike lane in there. What I'm seeing, I drive by it every day, is you got students in University riding their bicycle. They're on their bicycles on the sidewalk. It's the wild, wild west. Depends on how brave the cyclist is. And I just worry about a cyclist being hurt there, or a
Right.
pedestrian for that matter.
Yeah.
Bicycle pedestrian crash.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're limited by the right-of-way, but with the traffic study, they'll be looking at that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Doñana County?
In regards to the Elks Drive multi-use trail, right now, we're working to fully secure additional monies for the budget shortfall for that project. And we're doing that through the Safe Routes to School funds. The Mesilla Valley MPO Policy Committee approved the TIP amendment last week that will allow New Mexico DOT to award the county additional funds for that. In the meantime, while we go through the appropriate process with the MPO and New Mexico DOT, we will be awarding the contractor the job for construction of that project next week at the BOCC. So.
Okay, thank you. Town of Mesilla, do you have any further updates for us?
No, that's the only updates I have right now.
NMSU is absent. Las Cruces Public Schools?
This is Ashley Curry from Las Cruces Public Schools, and I do have some updates. We had a very successful family bike fiesta on April 29th. We had about, I think, close to 250 participants from volunteers, adults and students involved, and added some extra things. And I know he's not here on this committee, but I just wanted to shout out to Roadrunner Transit for participating. They brought a bus so that students could learn how to load bikes onto the front of a bus, and that was a great addition to this year. We had then, following the Family Bike Fiesta, we had National Bike to School Day, and we still have 2 events. We've got Tombaugh this Thursday, and then this Friday, Central Elementary. But so far, the tally of just students on bikes is 228 so far for this National Bike to School Day, so that's great. And then our school year ends June 2nd this year, and we're back at school July 20th, so it's a short summer. We're hoping to do some work this summer on some of our coordination with school zones and things like that with the city and with the school district to figure out some of the issues, and the county and the various municipalities. So kind of stay tuned for that. And then the one thing I just did remember what I wanted to say for the town of Mesilla. So this is to Deputy Nunez. There was a comment from a citizen who felt like the multi-use trail and vehicles, there may be some conflict down at Snow Road where it hits Calle del Norte with the stop signs, and he felt like maybe some kind of signage. And I rode it the other day and saw that there is some signage. So, but just maybe the stop bar needs to be repainted just so that vehicles know to stop before they get, because the stop sign is actually there, but he feels like people, stop really at the road instead of at the multi-use trail, and it could be a point of conflict. So that was just something that I wanted to pass on, is with the new multi-use trails crossing over roadways and just making sure that both directions know to expect each other.
Yes, ma'am. I'll look into that and see what we can do there.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Okay. NMDOT?
We have two projects on US 70. The first one is mile marker 142 to 151. It's the minor pavement preservation. The contractor, Mountain State, has completed the pavement work. We're currently working with the subcontractor on permanent striping. Contractors working from Nassau Road toward Rinconada Boulevard. Operating hours will be from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The second project is US 70 mile marker 172 east of Las Cruces. We are still working on the cleaning of the culverts and arroyos. The contractor will have shoulder closures on both sides. Traveling public has to expect delays. Operating hours will be from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. MPO staff update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dominic Loya for MPO staff. As you know, we have a tip cycle every 2 years. And just to let the committee know, you will be seeing next time the new tip for 2024 to 2029. And we'll be asked to basically make a recommendation to the policy board, as well as it will go up on our website next week for public comment. And then Mr. Andrew Ray will be finishing the comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Andrew Ray for the record. I'm afraid I have to end tonight's meeting on a bit of a melancholy note, but I need to announce that tonight is Dr. Michael McAdams' final meeting here at the BPAC. In fact, it is final MPO meeting in toto. He is retiring from the MPO at the end of this month, but his last actual day in the office is going to be this Friday. So I'm sure that the BPAC will join MPO staff in wishing him a very fulfilling and happy next chapter of his life.
I thank Dr. McAdams for everything, all the work that he's done here. He's educated us, and it's been very helpful over the years. So round of applause for Dr. McAdams. Is that all for the staff update?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So committee member update. I guess I'll just talk a little bit about the Bike Month activities that are still happening. This Wednesday is the Rite of Silence in Mesilla. It's advertised to start gathering at 6:15 at the plaza and depart at 6:30. And then Friday is Bike to Work Day. Val Cruces will be hosting a meet and greet at Little Toad at 5 o'clock. So anybody that wants to come and join that, Val Cruces is sponsoring some food there. And then May 27th, Val Cruces is going to do a bike to market. We'll meet up by the water tower up at the top near Griggs and Trevis and bike down to the market. And then June 3rd is the Adaptive Cycle Parade at the Mesilla Community Center. And this is part of the Everybody Rides with Grace program. So the adaptive cycles are cycles that we've been providing to some disabled youth. And we expect to do a little ride down to the plaza, then down around past the plaza. I don't remember the names of all the streets, but down to Calle del Oeste and then back up to the community center. So it'll be a short ride, but last year was great fun, and we've got some refreshments and other activities there. So, any other committee members?
Mr. Chair, and just a couple, for City of Las Cruces, I had a question. The reconstruct of Madrid from, I think it's, I can't remember the street, from Trevize, the section that's not been done yet.
To
Do you
Evelyn,
know-
I believe.
Yes, Evelyn, thank you. Do you know what's the status of that is?
That one is currently under design. I know that one's grant funded, so it does have a expiration date. I believe it's 2 years. I'm not sure exactly of the exact date. I can get that back to you, but it's still in design right now.
Okay, are you familiar with the design at all, where they're at? I had emailed Public Works and asked them to consider perhaps at Trevize, where it meets Trevize, instead of a traffic signal there, maybe a traffic circle. That's just more conducive for walking and biking to cross onto the Trevize Trail rather than a traffic signal.
I don't believe there's any design for a signal there right now.
No, it's gonna be a stop sign still?
Yes, I believe so. And I think the main reason is because eventually, I don't think it's anytime in the near future, but they would like to connect Madrid over to
The
Telstra
flyover.
across. So I don't believe there's any traffic signal going in there right now.
Okay, thank you. And then just a comment for NMDOT, the frontage roads, Baton East and West, super nice to ride on now that the pavement's been redone on them. Oh man, I went on a road the other day, it was so nice. compared to out west. So thank you for that.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else? So we'll go on to our public comment. Anybody from the public? Please come up and.
Hello, Mr. Chair. Andy Hume, Airport Director. Just a couple of comments for Deputy Nanez. One, just to share, I don't believe the town of Mesilla is a home rule city. So there may be some restrictions as far as how much you can change your ordinance from the state ordinance. So just wanted to share that with you. I had the privilege of doing extensive work on the City of Las Cruces ordinances for traffic, bicycle traffic, as well as bike parking. And since the city is a home rule city, we have a lot more latitude on how we can do that. Did a lot of research on a lot of other bicycle-friendly communities and states and so on. I think I probably have that research somewhere. I'll be more than happy to share it with everybody. It's very old, but probably still has some relevance. The other thing that I would just submit, and it's not something certainly that the MPO specifically would be involved in, but if in fact the state statutes are out of date, next year is a short session for the legislature, so the focus is on budget only. But right now, if you all are interested in changing state statute, now is when you need to be engaging your state legislature, state legislators in the interim committees. They'll be starting up, I believe, in June, and setting the stage now for proposals to fix state laws, not this session, but in the next long session, which is in 2 years. So just wanted to share that it's not something the MPO would do, but it's something that you all would work on with your state legislators. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you for that comment and that advice, because this last session, we added some e-bike definitions. I think that's the only change that was done that was bicycle specific, but there's been previous efforts to do a 5-foot passing, and so that's still something that would be useful at the state level. No more public comment, so I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
Albert Casillas, I motion to adjourn.
Ashley Curry, second.
Without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you.